It's time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
President Trump has destroyed not only the chances of peace, but the stability and security of the region as a whole. He has undermined his closest allies in the Arab world.
Washington's Middle East allies all warning President Trump against the dangerous repercussions of taking this action, and you're seeing it right now, some of the uprisings that occurred as soon or shortly after he made this declaration. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts on it is that it's an extremely complex issue. And the problem I have is that we have a person in the White House who doesn't do the homework to understand it. They've decimated the State Department. They don't have people who understand it. And he makes decisions because it's a campaign promise. That's outrageous.
But I do think this time was the right thing to do. I mean, every other president that we've had in the recent future has also said they were going to do this and didn't follow through because they're afraid of the repercussions. It is a complex issue, but it has been the unofficial.
Carolyn, he hasn't done anything except make a statement that caused people to riot. He hasn't done anything.
Right. Well, that's the first step. The first step is making that statement, signing it in.
But America made that statement back in 1990.
And they never followed through it. The Congress, everybody voted on it.
Because they're not going to follow through now.
Right. Gene is correct. I like to say that sentence.
Thank you.
I hope they will follow through. And I think if they did, it would help the peace process, actually. It doesn't mean that Palestine can't have a capital there, too.
Let's go back to Jared Kushner being the person who is over in the Middle East negotiating. That's just out.
He has the vice president over there now.
Okay, great. Mike Pence. I have just that much more faith in Mike Pence than I do in Jared Kushner. Not. But having said that, it's not something that you do without consulting with the people who it's going to affect. There needs to be a diplomatic process associated. You need to know where the other countries stand.
But you said, like I said, the State Department's gutted. We don't even have a State Department. We don't even have ambassadors.
Right.
Rick Vax, please.
In 1995, Congress required the U.S. president to move to support the U.S. Embassy moving to Jerusalem. They have not done that because they feel that there would be violence, that there would be nothing gained. Also, there might be a bargaining chip. I really feel that the danger here is not that there's going to be rioting, but that people don't realize that there's not going to be any peace. If he hadn't done this, there would still be no peace. It's not as if this is going to interfere with peace. There is no prospect of peace in the Middle East.
But it does, Professor, interfere with peace because now we can't be a player in it.
I think
We've lost all credibility.
I think that's a reasonable point, that he loses some of his cachet as a bargainer. And that's a problem. I actually am at 6s and at 7s on this issue. It's a really close issue.
We'll keep our eye on this, Mary, because we must turn our attention quickly to the state of Alabama, ladies and gentlemen, where the controversial senator election will be held on Tuesday. How about this? Now, it's Republican and accused sex offender Roy Moore, there on your right, versus Democrat Doug Jones, there on your left. Despite allegations that Moore pursued and dated young girls, he eventually received the endorsement from President Trump.
We're going to see if the people of Alabama will support the president and support his agenda in Washington.
I believe these women, and so should you. We need to look at this as parents, not voters.
Arizona Republican, by the way, Senator Jeff Flake wrote this check, $100 to Doug Jones, and under there on the left it says, country over party. Gene.
Yeah, well, not many people believe country over party. We should be talking about how did Alabama get into the football Final Four. But no, we're talking about an election in Alabama where it's more important to have an accused offender than a person who's not an offender. I mean, they're not taking country over party.
Can I tell you what I find amazing about this? The question that was never asked, and it goes back to these allegations with people say are fake news. Could someone please ask Roy Moore the question of why is it when you're 30 plus years old, have a professional job, that you have to ask the parents of the people you want to date? So I just want to know. I just want to know what that's because he is because once you get the title, you hold.
Even if you lose the title 2 times for being unconstitutional,
you don't lose it. I mean, that's the bottom line. But you know, the whole thing is outrageous for what it represents, and the fact that the Republicans, I mean, initially when there's the reaction and they pull back the money, they say they're not going to back him, and then all of a sudden Trump says, okay, I'm going to back him because let's talk about the guy who wants to grab your you know
I'll agree that Trump should have stayed out of it.
I want to say this.
Trump should have stayed out of it.
I want to say this about Moore. In today's rhetoric, everybody's called a racist, and so when you have a genuine racist, it loses cachet. This Moore has referred to Asians as yellows. His talk against gay America and gay marriage is really ugly. He compared an issue to the Holocaust. I mean, he is really a contemptible individual.
He was what we would call a crackpot. He is a crackpot in any definition of the word. The guy is a lunatic. He's a lunatic. He has no business being in the United States Senate.
What does that say about the people of Alabama?
It says about the people of Alabama just what the same as it said about people who voted for Donald Trump in many respects. They have an issue that they are concerned about. Yeah. And if they can reach the resolution of that issue, they don't really care who is the standard bearer.
Birmingham, Alabama used to be the home of the National States Rights Party House, in which they had just the ugliest hatred and wishes of genocide for Jews and genocide for blacks.
And the famous bombing.
Yeah, and of course the bombing. I mean, there's no gainsaying that this is really a contemptible individual. And I'm really amazed that one of my heroes, Paul Ryan, has supported his election. I think
those guys have so much doublespeak.
You know, also this week, of course, Democratic Senator Al Franken. Let's talk about him for a second. He resigns from Congress. He'll be leaving Washington in a few weeks, denying allegations of groping and improper advances from at least 6 women. And, of course, Republican Representative Trent Franks from Arizona. He also resigned after an Ethics Committee investigation into allegations of sexual harassment. You were saying something earlier about what Franken said.
Yes, absolutely. Is when he made basically his parting comments, which is he finds it ironic that he is resigning from the Senate with a person who's sitting in the White House who said on tape he assaulted women, that he can do it because of who he is. And we have a senator a person who's running for the Senate in Alabama who's been supported by his party.
And who did not apologize. He did not apologize.
Yeah, he did not apologize, Franken.
What's your thought on this?
Well, I watched the Franken speech, and there was no apology that he gave. It was basically, he seemed angry that he was a scapegoat for the Democratic Party. He basically was just saying, I'm leaving. He didn't say he was sorry, but and then he threw out the insults. I think it needs to be across the board. I don't care if you're Republican, if you're Democrat, if you're independent. There needs to be accountability.
How do you feel about the allegations concerning President Trump?
You mean what happened before?
Well, the interview with
Billy Bush? I mean, honestly, I feel like that's old news, and I don't mean that it's not important or anything. It happened before the election, and America still voted him in.
That's how he got elected, Mary. See, that's how he got elected.
But Franken, you're willing to excuse